the Financial Review splash, an interesting one, as the blowtorch environment of federal politics pervades the country off the back of the federal budget just 6 days ago. PM pounces on Labor tax grab. Plans by the Victorian government to increase property taxes by $2.5 billion to help pay down debt will harm confidence in the already badly shaken state and should serve as a warning against voting for federal Labor, Scott Morrison says, speaking to the AFR during his post-budget tour of Queensland. The Prime Minister said tax increases were the last thing the economy needed now because they would unquestionably slow the recovery. The Victorian Labor government's proposed increase in stamp duty and land taxes on higher-end properties to help combat a $23 billion deficit were quite punishing. Ollie, can I just say, I've just moved from Brisbane to the coast and sold my property and bought a property, and stamp duty is the greatest rip-off, the greatest rort in Australian taxation history. It is essentially a donation of a significant amount of money, depending on how much your property is worth. It can be anything from, $10 grand to $1 million or more. But it is just like putting a match to a shed load of money and saying to the government, well, actually, I won't strike the match. That's just yours. I just think it's the greatest disincentive to property and the greatest disincentive to aspiration in this country right now. And I applaud the New South Wales government, Gladys Berejiklian and Dominic Perrottet, who are looking at phasing that out and bringing in some sort of land tax, some sort of annual land tax where you slug a couple of grand a year rather than 100 grand to buy a house.
This idea from the Victorian government is completely nuts. They have completely lost the plot. And I think that if Daniel Andrews wants to proceed with this, he can just hand the keys to the lodge to Scott Morrison for 4 more years. Because if I was Anthony Albanese, I would be on the phone to him right now and say, Dan, what are you doing to me? Scrap it. It is ridiculous, Gleeson. And you're right, that's a model that the New South Wales government's looking at. I know it's been floated over here in Western Australia as well to remove stamp duty and look towards land tax. And when you put debt into a $23 billion figure in Victoria, and obviously it's going to rise over the next few years out of COVID, why would you in Victoria right now, which has been through more lockdowns than any other state due to COVID-19, why would you be trying to create additional taxes when the country's moving in a different direction and all the other states are moving in a different direction? $23 billion of debt, it's a lot of money.
I'll tell you, Ollie.
But debt, something, you've got about $100 billion, don't you, in Queensland?
100 billion. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why the government are doing it. Because they're anti-aspiration. They're about the leaners, not the lifters. They're about, spending other people's money because it makes sense. What did Margaret Thatcher say? Socialism's great until you run out of other people's money. And that's the problem down there in Victoria and to a lesser degree in Queensland, although they're catching up quickly. The unions run the show here, the left-wing unions like the CFMEU. So you're right, very well said. It is madness, and that's the reason why so many Victorians are escaping Stalag Victoria and getting out and coming to Queensland and New South Wales and probably WA, although even WA is getting a reputation now.
Yeah, well, I don't blame people at the moment. This is nuts, and it needs to be cancelled immediately. It's just a stupid idea, stupid policy. And in the scheme of debt, Gleeson, right now, debt's nothing, and it should be something. But Australians probably don't really care about debt because no party can campaign on now bringing down debt or saying debt's a bad thing or the government's done the wrong thing. They had to do what they had to do. So Daniel Andrews, Victoria, just keep doing what you have to do. Don't try and penalise people who, as you say, just want to try and climb the property ladder, or we're a country of aspiration. It is just nuts.
Well said.